Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Starting a little later than usual today. Had some things to get done earlier in the day. Hope everybody's doing well. Pen. All right. Before we get into our topic today, we're going to have a little bit of a drinky drink. Today I'm just drinking a straight plain coffee. Black. It's a Colombian. Very smooth, mild roast. I don't drink super strong coffee. I mean, I guess it's strong, it's just not acidic. I don't think coffee should be overly acidic. Didn't make my usual espresso in the morning. Just drinking straight black coffee. Curious to hear what what you guys like to drink first thing in the morning. Yeah, this is like really silky smooth. Just kind of rolls off your palate. Really nice. If you're watching this now or offline, tell me what kind of coffee you like to drink. What's your favorite? And don't tell me Starbucks, because that's not really coffee. I joke, it's coffee, it's just not the good kind. Yeah, I'm telling you, if you haven't had this is Peixoto, one of my favorite local roasters here in Chandler, Arizona. And I'm telling you, very difficult to match the flavor that they get from this coffee bean. Very difficult. I don't think I've ever tasted coffee as smooth, as bold. They're really able to control the acidity in their bean, probably because they grow the bean and themselves on their own farm in Brazil. And they ship it here. They roast it here. You know exactly when it was roasted. And you know exactly what you're drinking. It's single origin. Great stuff. Quality control. Not the overburnt stuff that you have to add a bunch of sugar, a bunch of sweetener to. And somebody asked me once why I drink 2 different cups of coffee. And this is a little technique I picked up. This is actually a cup of water. So you drink water in between your swigs. What happens is you get a different taste in your palate because the coffee is not just sitting on your tongue the whole time. Mind blown. I know. It's really smart. New way to enjoy coffee. Anyhow, today's topic is kind of interesting, controversial, but then again, we don't talk about anything that's not controversial. Onlyfans. So most of you know what Onlyfans is. Subscription-based platform where content creators can sell their content on a monthly subscription basis. And on a asynchronous basis, you can request content and the content creator can produce it for you for a price that you set as a content creator. It just so happens to be that most of the content is adult in nature. So nudes or lingerie pics, modeling pics. But there are musicians on OnlyFans. There are trainers, fitness buffs on OnlyFans. I'm sure there are chefs and cooks on OnlyFans. Just like anything else, you can make it whatever you want to make it. Build a following base, a subscriber base, and create some content. And so, of course, it started off in London. And what do people do with platforms that have anything to do with sharing pics? Automatically, people start leaning towards adult content. Interesting. What does it say about us as human beings? I don't know. I think it is just an interesting concept. Anyway, OnlyFans. So I don't know if you guys heard, but a few days ago, a mother of 3, 44-year-old mother of 3, her pictures were sort of leaked, if you will, to the parishioners and the bishop and the principal of her children's Catholic school. So this mom has a 8-year-old, 10-year-old, and a 12-year-old. She's out of Sacramento, California. And, somebody, I think it was a dad actually caught her profile on OnlyFans. And it kind of just went viral from there in the sense that within the community that, Did you know this mom whose children go to our school has an OnlyFans page? Oh, what's an OnlyFans page? And they printed off her pictures and they shared it with a bunch of parents. And some of the moms did what most moms do. They tried to figure out how to get back at her or teach her a lesson. I don't know. And essentially they made it a point to make sure that the Catholic community and certainly the school that her kids go to were aware of the OnlyFans pictures. Hey, Brian. And so what happens when a Catholic school gets a hold of your OnlyFans pictures? What do you think is going to happen? Total retaliation. So her children were essentially kicked out of school. And, the basis for kicking the kids out of the school, it's a private school, I'm presuming. It's a Catholic school, so it is a private school. Was, look, we don't tolerate, this sort of sense of morality from people who attend our schools or send their kids to schools. And so, interestingly enough, Crystal's OnlyFans account is not descriptive, meaning it doesn't say that this is, Crystal Jackson's account. And she doesn't promote it offline, meaning, she promotes it offline, but she doesn't tie her name to it. So she's not necessarily trying to tell the world that this is her. She's created a different persona online. And one thing you'll know about online personas is you may not recognize the person when you see them in the flesh. Even if it's somebody you know, you may not. And that's sort of the beauty of being a content creator on the internet. You can do things that don't necessarily have to be associated with your real identity or who you are as a person. You might be doing it to make a living, to make an honest living, as they say. You're not cheating anybody. And, you're doing it to sort of separate from your personal life. And it sounds like that's what she's doing. So, of course, what happens? Parishioners find out, school finds out, they kick the kids out, and eventually gets viral. So the timeline of this is kind of interesting. So Crystal started her account in 2019. And when asked why she started her account, it was something a friend of hers had told her about, because she said, hey, listen, I'm menopausal and my sex life is not really what it used to be. And somebody suggested OnlyFans. And so she tried it with the permission and knowledge of her husband. And they both agreed that they would try this out. Hey, whatever floats your boat. If that's what's going to put the spark back in your marriage, then who am I to tell you not to do it? So this 44-year-old mom in 2019 started her account. And I think by her statements, she says her first month she made about $13,000 being a part-time model. And my understanding, I don't know where Crystal works, but my understanding is she's a technology executive in Sacramento, California. And so $13,000 a month is it's pretty good beans for a content creation hobby, right? Whether the content's music or pictures or whatever it is, that's a pretty good sum of money. So she continued. Next month went to 15, gradually, grew from there. And my understanding is today, my mind was a little blown when I heard this number. My understanding is today, she makes about $150,000 a month. $150,000 a month selling her pictures. And by reading the articles that I've read where she's quoted, according to her, only 20-30% of her pictures involve nudity. So most of the pictures are her wearing, bikinis, lingerie, what she describes as tasteful pictures. Okay, tasteful is in the eye of the beholder. That's for you to decide. But they're non-pornographic in nature, according to her, and there are some nudes. 20 to 30%. $150,000 a month from a hobby, something that she was looking to really do to spice up her marriage. And I find that to be very, very fascinating. But anyway, I think the response is even more interesting. So, the Catholic school, and we'll talk about, morality here and whether there's a right and wrong. But what's interesting about this is that, the school, if you're a Catholic school and you find out that, you've got 3 kids from this mom at your school, I'm assuming Catholic schools teach morality. They teach, theology. They teach doctrine. They want their students to be very moral and ethical people, whatever compass that is. That's fine. It's a scripture-based theology, right? Why would you kick them out of school? Think about that for a second. Wouldn't you say, we're not going to kick you out of school. We're actually going to put you in the after-school special. Comedy aside, I think if you are a religious institution, which you are, if you're a Catholic school, you're a religious institution, and you have a problem with what the parents of of three of your students, what they're involved in, and you believe it falls on the moral map in a way that is often a far island, wouldn't you want to bring them back into the mainland of morality and ethics and religion and theology according to what you believe it is? Just a question. I would think so. I would say, hey kids, come, let's huddle by the fire. Everything okay at home? What's going on at home? Okay, and then talk to the parents. Hey, we found these pictures. We found this profile. Which, footnote who found it and how they found it. We'll come back to that. But they find these pictures. Talk to the mom. Hey, is everything going on okay at home? Are you all right? We saw these pictures. We don't maybe personally know. And I don't know if the bishop and the principal knew the mom very well. I don't know how close these people are to each other. But the question still stands. Don't you approach her first and say, listen, we think this is against our religion. We think this is against the moral compass or moral code that we have here. And, you need to stop doing this. And if you don't stop doing this, then we have to figure out what to do and people learn about it. It sounds like the way this actually went down was, she was discovered, or it was discovered that she was doing this sometime in June of 2020. Which means it took a solid, 6 months or 7 months before the school took any action. It's interesting. So it was a handful of parents who basically wanted to burn her at the stake and say, we got to do something, we got to do something, we got to do something. Certainly wasn't automatic. I don't know how long the principal knew. I don't know how long the bishop knew. But from what I am reading online, according to her, she was discovered or found out in June of 2020. So why did it take so long to boot the kids out? Just an interesting question. Second question I'm really wondering about is, who's the dad that found her? Kind of a double standard here. If this is the moral compass that you're teaching, what about the parents that are proliferating her image all over the parish and all over the school? I mean, what we read is that several moms, many families were distributing her photos. Query that for a second. I mean, isn't that kind of hypocritical? If you believe that somebody in your community, again, putting this into the context in which it is, which is it's a religious institution. If you knew that an attendee at your religious institution was engaged in something that you believed was contrary to the theology, how do you handle that? Do you just go and smear them and say, burn them at the stake, let's put them in town square and hang them and light them on fire? I mean, that's what they did to her, essentially. That's truly embarrassing for somebody who's trying to maintain some level of confidentiality. Or do you approach them in a more tactful manner and say, listen, do we need to talk? Do you need marital help? Do you need counseling? Because that's what she says she published. The reason why she started publishing these images anyways was to add some more flair back into her marriage. So I query the decision by the school to boot the kids out. What do the kids have to do with this anyway? I mean, in a way, you're making a statement that we don't want anyone associated with our school that's associated with things. Really? Really? Do we really need to go there? Do you play private moral police with all of the attendees of your Catholic church, your Catholic school? I don't know. I'm not necessarily arguing one way or another, but I think we have to ask these questions. I don't think we just simply be okay with the fact that, I mean, come on, she's sharing these, controversial pictures. Of course her kids are going to get booted out of Catholic school. I don't know. I don't know that I agree with that automatically. I think if somebody's having the hard time that she was having, which she uses to support her basis for why she started in the first place, I think you need to question the school's decision to do what they did. The other thing that I think you need to consider, she is a 44-year-old technology executive from Sacramento. I don't think she was hurting for money. I don't think, according to her, she was shocked she made $13,000 the first $14,000 a month the first month. She thought, who's going to want to see this mom, as she called herself, who's going to want to see this mom, this soccer mom, so to speak, in my risque pictures, right? She was doing it for a different reason, to feel good about herself. She was doing it to add some buzz and some flair into her marriage. She doesn't claim that it was to make money. Certainly that changed. I mean, $150,000 a month, no matter what part of the country you're in, is a lot of money. So you're making over $1 million a year as a hobbyist. And in her mind, this is completely separate and distinct from her kids' education. And she says she wanted her kids to be, to go to a Catholic school. So I think that's the more even troubling part of this is a woman who's saying, listen, I have a certain, there's a moral tension here, but I still want my kids to be raised in a theology like Catholicism and go to a private Catholic school. And the school says, no, thank you. I mean, questionable. It's questionable. I think that, whenever you look at these issues, you have to also consider, again, I'm a lawyer, so I look at the legal side of this. What are the legal implications? So you have people who took her pictures and disseminated them. That's unquestionably a fact. Is that a tort that was committed? I think so. Did they infringe her right did they infringe her right to distribute her own images as she saw fit? I think so. Certainly, I think it's a violation of Onlyfans terms of service, which don't allow the dissemination of these images. Somebody bought these pictures from her. Think about that. Some parent went on there, paid money as a straw man or straw woman, got her photos, and decided to spread them. Think about that. Again, I think if you have a problem with what she's doing, I think you approach her. I don't think you disseminate her photograph. That tells me, that is literally hanging her at the stake. That's literally the definition of that. You are taking her down. You want to torture her. You want to embarrass her. You want her kids to get booted out of school. She's still the same person she was before you discovered what she was doing. And if you think if you're a friend, or you're a participant in her church, don't you think you should talk to her? Maybe she is suffering from something. Did you ask her? I just think that the manner in which this happened really speaks to sort of the treachery behind this. So that's one side of the story. There's another side of the story, which is, don't all content creators take a risk that the content that they put out and distribute and promote will cause some sort of personal a backlash or personal criticisms. That goes for any content. If you're a musician and you play guitar and you put it on YouTube and people are saying your music sucks, isn't that the risk you take? It is the risk you take. Not only is it the risk you take, but I think you have to have thick skin and understand that from the moment that you publish your photos or your videos, right? Or your music, whatever the content is, your artwork. At the same time, I'm pretty sure she realized that at some point somebody would discover who she is. And I think if you make the argument, well, Raees, you assume the risk. You put anything out there, it's got your face on it. It might not say, Crystal Jackson in the account, but anybody in your community, certainly, who discovers this, they're going to know it's you, right? You may not know it by the name in the profile, but you're going to know it by the picture in the profile, perhaps. Yeah, there's merits to that argument, for sure. I think it's a slippery slope, as they say, because on one hand, you're not associating your real name with the content. You're anonymous or pseudo-anonymous, and you are trying to keep it under lock and key to some degree. In this instance, obviously the husband knew, and the husband was supportive of his wife. The kids didn't know. The mom says that, Crystal says that she had to tell her kids that, mom was, you were kicked out of school because mom was doing online modeling. That's a weird conversation to have with your kids. I mean, kids are, if your kids are 8, 10, and 12, I think the 12-year-old will be suspicious of what kind of modeling it was that got mom in trouble. But the 8 and 10-year-old probably don't have much of a clue. I don't know. But again, I think going back and looking at this as an attorney, I mean, are there legal implications to the, does Crystal, let me ask you this way, does Crystal have a cause of action against any of the individuals who went to her profile, paid for the pictures, and distributed the images with the intent to cause her reputational harm and malign her? And I think the answer is yes. Depends on the cause of action that we could raise. Certainly a tortious interference. It's an intentional interference. The question is, was it an interference that the law would recognize as improper? And now we get into the issues where the law as a dinosaur doesn't catch up to contemporary issues. And maybe there has to be a case that's litigated where a person voluntarily engages in some sort of content creation, and somebody grabs the content and says, did you know this person did this? And it impacted the person professionally. I think that's still tortious interference. I think that's still an interference that was unwarranted, unless these people have a duty to talk, right? So, like, let's say the principal himself was on OnlyFans. Probably don't doubt that. And he found these pictures, and he said, "Oh, isn't this Crystal? Doesn't she have 3 kids here? I have an obligation now." Maybe he had an obligation. Maybe there's a moral code, a written code, a handbook that says, if you engage in certain conduct, then as an employee, you have to report it. And once you report it, we have the discretion to take whatever actions we need to protect the church or the school. So maybe he had a right to do that. But that's not the story here. The story here is a group of people. A dad found it. Query, dad found it. And just told other people about it, and they burned her at the stake. Those are the facts we have. And under those facts, I don't think that that's a lawful way to deal with this issue. Again, moral issues aside, if you were attending her church or you were a parent in the same school, how would you approach this issue? Would you approach it in the same way that the school did? Would you attack her? Would you malign her? Clearly, she had issues, which she herself has acknowledged in her marriage. And she was trying to find a solution. What did you do to help her? If your so-called mission is to, with any institution or any school, is to help the parents and students and teachers and faculty and to make them better people, build a moral compass that is closely aligned with the theology in which you believe, then have you accomplished that? Or is this retribution? And this to me is retribution. Did they have a legal right to do it? They probably did. I'm sure the Catholic institution where her kids attend have a handbook, like I said, a handbook, some policy or unwritten policy. And even if they didn't, a religious institution, a private institution has a lot of leeway in terms of what they can and can't do. And so long as it's not, violating the law, of course. You can't discriminate against people, right? You still have civil rights that can't be violated, etc. But I think the point is that this is an interesting question, and I'm sure she's not the first. I think this one made headlines just because I think the fact pattern is a little more interesting, right? Because it's edgy. You have a Catholic school here. You have a 44-year-old tech executive mom with 3 kids. And so the story is very different. It's very unique, making $150,000 a month. And again, she claims that she didn't start doing this for the money. It was because her marriage was falling apart and her husband agreed that this is what they would do to add some flair. Who are we to question that? Only she can speak to that, right? But I think if you take all the facts into consideration and you analyze this and you go beyond knee-jerk reactions, I am not sure that the school did the right thing. And I'm curious to hear what all of you think. I'm curious to hear what other questions we have to ask. Do you as an institution publish a policy that says we're not going to tolerate people on this platform, using the platform, watching this platform? Do you enforce it? I'm sure there will be policies that are put into place by the institution now, but I'm not sure that this played off fairly. And this is something that's been going on for months. It was going on for months, and so clearly the school didn't think just to fire or kick out her kids, I should say, immediately. Right, and that's the thing. What I think is interesting is clearly there was some debate on this. Is what should we do? It went on for months. So again, if the school discovered this in June 2020, her kids were just booted out of school a few days ago. Right, that's a timeline. So what was happening in that timeline? There was considerations. It clearly was not a unanimous, or at least it wasn't an immediately unanimous decision. And I thought this was an interesting quote. I'm going to read this quote that she gave. Let's see. In the year 2021, here we are, trying to bring a woman down for her choices in what she does with her husband. It's body shaming and bullying, all encompassed into one, and it's such a double standard and disturbing. I've never gone in other people's business, and I'm not judging you for your choices. If women could just support each other, the world would be such a better place. I agree that there's a double standard. I mean, you have to accept that there's a double standard. What happened to the parents that were purchasing these pictures? You don't just happen to stumble upon them, clearly, because her account is not marked according to her. Her account. I tagged it in our promotion for today's live. Her tag is somewhere here. Anyway, it's nondescript, meaning it doesn't have her name. And you would not, according to the way the platform works, you don't have access to these photos unless you bought them. So again, you went on this platform, parent of this Catholic school, and you disseminated them. You purchased them. You were obviously looking at them, and you were distributing them. Is there any consequence for that, or is that person protected because their intentions were different? I'm talking about in terms of the school and the implications the school has. So there's all these questions. I find it to be just fascinating because I think there are double standards here. There's always double standards. I think there's some hypocrisy going on here. I think, should they or shouldn't they have done what they did? Ultimately, it seems like they have a right. I'm sure they have a legal right to do what they did. In the sense that the school could kick the kids out for any reason, and according to their morality and their theology. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't ask more questions about this, because to me, it's still a little unsettling in the way in which it came out. And maybe we don't have all the facts yet. Maybe there's more to this. Maybe the school tried to reach out to her, tried to talk to her to see if there were problems that they could help with, if there was counseling and those kinds of things. I don't know. But this is an ever more popular topic. Leaks on OnlyFans, people being harassed. And again, I understand both sides, right? I've seen both sides of this. One side is, if you are a content creator on any platform, let alone, nude pictures or risky pictures, there's going to be backlash and people will discover it. And you have to be open to those criticisms, and you have to recognize that those things will happen. And you can't simply act like you have no idea that someone's going to discover your OnlyFans page or whatever content it is that you're producing. At the same time, when you take steps to sort of create a disconnect in the chain, if you will, leading back to you, you have a right to remain anonymous online, and this is protected speech. The content on OnlyFans is protected speech according to the U.S. Constitution under the First Amendment. And you engage in protected speech, and somebody lashes out against you, is that okay? And I know that's a broad categorization of this, but I think it's just an interesting question. There are dilemmas here. There are tensions, I think, and I believe that the more this continues to happen, meaning backlash because you have a particular account or a particular lifestyle that we discovered. And I shouldn't even say lifestyle. I mean, this is a hobby that turned into a money-making opportunity for many of these people. I think we're going to continue to see this question of, hey, what should happen to this person? Should they lose their job if I, as an employer, don't agree with the content that they're distributing, with where this puts me in terms of the moral compass, or perhaps with my investors or the people that I report to, the people on the board, the institutions, the bishops, the principals, etc. And I think it's just it's going to be an interesting time as people discover more and more content creators who are on this platform who they disagree with. I mean, what if she was a rock music creator, and she liked to play in bars and clubs, and she played heavy metal or death metal music, and you disagreed with that? Is that the same, or is it something specific about explicit photography? Yeah, probably the explicit photography, right? It's probably not the same as playing a different kind of music than you like. And again, I'm not questioning whether the institution is allowed to have a moral compass that they enforce according to their theology. I think that's perfectly fine. And I'm sure there's documents you sign as a parent, when you put your kids into a Catholic school. I'm sure. Or any religious school. I just question the way this all went down. And again, I think it's funny that if you have kids in your school, in your institution, and you believe the parent's conduct doesn't meet the code or violates some principle of morality, don't you do something other than kick them out? Don't you say, let's put them in the after-school special? Let's actually keep you in the institution. Maybe you need more moral training or theological understanding. Do you just kick them out? I think that sends a different message. And again, I haven't seen or read anything that says that the school in which her children attended engaged in any of this. It sounds like it took months for this decision to happen, that there was, not everybody may have agreed with it, or maybe it's because it was during the summer and school was off and administration is slow. But the pictures were leaked to the school months and months before any action was taken by the school. So I kind of question what happened that took so long, if in fact this was a clear violation of your principles or of your policies. Anyway, I tend to agree that this was probably not the best approach. Was the ultimate, conclusion correct? I think that's in the eye of the beholder. I think you have to decide based on the facts whether this was the right thing for a Catholic school to do in light of the circumstances. I don't know that this is something that is open and shut as we tend to believe it is. I don't know what you think. I'd love to hear your opinion. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you think. In the meantime, I'm sure we'll see more and more cases of this. We've gotten plenty of calls from people who are OnlyFans content creators having their photos and videos leaked. People saying, relationships were ruined, relationships with professionals and their parents were ruined. They thought they had it under control. They marketed their account in an anonymous way using some other channel, and the creators are now being harassed and their professional lives destroyed, etc. We've gotten, over 20 calls on this just in the last, 35 to 40 days. And so this is a growing problem. Moral questions, I think, need to be answered by individuals. Legal questions can be answered by the courts, and that's what we intend to do when we see these kinds of cases. But I just think it's an interesting controversy that is not going away anytime soon. And I'm sure we'll see plenty of headlines. I think recently there was even a police officer and then I think there was a nurse, right? I mean, this is everyday people, content creators. What are you going to do? Anyway, interesting conversation. If you have questions about what to do if you're a content producer, you can certainly send them to us. If you have questions on the scope of what's protected when you are such a creator, certainly send them to us. Or if you just have comments about this situation and Crystal Jackson and her kids getting kicked out of Catholic school, or if you have an opinion on this strongly one way or another, we'd love to hear about it. I don't think this is such an easy answer to a very for a growing problem, and hopefully the harassment and all the evil evil things that people are doing to her and her family stop. I don't think that it's fair. At the same time, I do think that when you become a content creator of something controversial like this, that you have to anticipate that some of these things are going to happen. I don't think that you go into this thinking everything's going to be roses by any stretch. At any rate, that's all that I had for you guys today. Kind of short and sweet. I think content creators should recognize, I guess in closing, couple of remarks. Content creators have rights. Content creators have, particularly on this platform, have rights. They have contractual rights. They have rights by statutory law, depending on the jurisdiction that you're in. If I'm her attorney, I'm looking at this. I'm wondering whether, aside from the copyright issues, she may not be able to sue for damages, of course, on the copyright side if she hasn't filed for copyright, but she could still get an injunction if they're still being distributed. She might have a privacy claim. She might have a defamation claim. If they're only saying truthful statements, she may have a false light claim, depending on what they're associating with her. Or maybe she doesn't have any claim at all. I know that California does have a revenge porn statute. I don't know if this qualifies under the statute. That'll be interesting. If anyone's ever has looked at that analysis, I'd be curious to see what the outcome is. At any rate, this will not be the last time that we talk about this issue. OnlyFans, ever-growing platform, whether you like it or you don't like it, the truth of the matter is that we are in a time where this platform is growing. I know when Instagram first came out, many people didn't like it, didn't go anywhere. Didn't go anywhere in the sense that it's here to stay. Many people didn't like TikTok. Many people didn't like a lot of different things. Doesn't matter what you like or not. The truth of the matter is those platforms exist. They're here. If you want to do something about it, great. If you want to defend the rights of people who are victims of crimes, of civil wrongdoings, wonderful. The laws exist for a reason. The laws sometimes have to fit into a square peg when they're a round object. I screwed up that saying, but you get my point. The idea is that we're catching up to the law is catching up to these platforms and the issues that are arising on these platforms. And you have to understand what the law has to say, or you don't have to participate in the conversation. Nobody cares what you think. I've said this before. Nobody cares what you think if it's an unsupported, unsubstantiated argument and it's just, throwing spaghetti at the wall. Nobody cares about that. What people care about, and certainly what judges and courts and other lawyers care about, are well-reasoned arguments that are supported by the facts, that are supported by the law. And perhaps in this circumstance, there are arguments on both sides, as there always are. It's never as clean-cut and black and white as people say. But I think there will be a growing trend of these issues happening, and I think the law will eventually catch up. People will use existing problems like this to draw analogies to protect content creators on this platform. So I think, with that being said, I think that wraps up today's Coffee and Conversations. If you have any questions, comments, please drop them below. Let us know what you think. And until next time.